Welcome to the Flora Sage Podcast, a place where we help you create a life you're excited about. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my podcast. Today, I'm going to talk with you about my 5-day vow of silence. So, as some of you may know, I just got back from a 14-day digital detox that began with a 3-day vow of silence. In today's podcast episode, I'm going to share with you some of my experience during this 14 days, why my 3-day vow of silence turned into 5 days, and I'm also going to be answering the questions that were sent to me from all of you listeners. So, why did I do this 14-day retreat? Well, I shared most of the answers to that question in episode 37. So if you haven't listened to it, jump on over and check it out. But essentially, I wanted to silence my ego and integrate my God self with my human self even more so. And I also really wanted to just disconnect from the world so that I can fully reconnect with myself. One of my other intentions for this Sadhana, or this journey is what it's called, was for me to feel more in joy and to release attachments to certain things that I had felt like had really been holding me back for like the last 6 to 9 months. So to prepare for this 14-day retreat, I worked with my guru, Samaha Yogini, to get really, really clear about my intention for doing this. And she also shared with me what I can expect, as well as any preparations to make beforehand. And this was really big. So during this time, she also created a specialized schedule for me to follow, which, I mean, she does this for every single person that does this 14-day sadhana or 14-day journey with her. She asks you, okay, what is your regular schedule? And she keeps certain things regular for you because obviously you're doing this at home. But some of my rules during this 14-day retreat were, number 1, no electronics, no electronic devices, no cell phone, no tablet, computer, laptop, TV, video games, movies, no electronics. Number 2 was, and this is something that I thought was really interesting, was there was to be a period of silence for 24 to 72 hours at some point during this 14 days. So basically no vocal cords. And also trying to avoid writing things down as much as possible. I really wanted to do this at the beginning so that I could, 1, get it out of the way, and 2, so that I could hopefully quiet my ego down so that I could hopefully achieve my goals more quickly during this program. Number 3 was to eat a plant-based vegetarian diet made up of real food and no pseudo food. So basically, if I read the label, didn't know what it was, then I could not eat it. But I really tried to stick with pretty much a whole food diet, just minus the meat. Now, typically if I do eat meat, it's during dinner. So this really wasn't a big change for me. I was vegan for several years way back in the day, and since then I typically eat as guided. So some days I'll eat raw vegan, other days just give me all the meat. So for this particular 14-day period, it was all plant-based, aka vegetarian, and I loved it. It was so good. The 4th and last directive was that I needed to follow the schedule created for me with discipline and dedication. Being someone who is of a military background and who loves structure, I very much am a let's do this and then this and then this. And if it is at a set time, I like to be on time or early. And so I asked her, I'm just like, okay, so literally I use my phone as my reminder, as my clock, as all that jazz. So what do you recommend that I do to keep on schedule without being so glued to a timer or a clock or whatever? And she's like, think of it as a next step. So this is your schedule, but this is just a next steps thing. And so allow yourself to just feel complete in one of the the steps and then go to the next step. And then when you feel complete, go to the next step and then go to the next step. So that was very freeing to do the next steps schedule instead of that strict timestamp. Because again, having that strict timestamp was like kind of freaking me out, going, shit, if I don't have a clock with me, how am I supposed to know what? But in any case, it worked out perfect. So I'm not going to give you my full schedule, but in short, I woke up at 7 a.m., went to bed at 11 p.m., and my day consisted of 3 one-hour-long meditation sessions, 2 yoga sessions, one of 60 minutes, and the second one was 30 minutes. And then I had meal times, snack times, I had outside time, free time, time for self-reflection. So now I'm going to give you a play-by-play of the program, some of the things I was thinking, some of the aha moments that happened. Some of these things are taken directly out of my journal. And then at the end is when I'm going to answer all the questions that people sent in. So days 1 through 3 of the program. First off, it was very strange not talking. I felt so disconnected in one way, but then more connected in other ways. So it was really hard not talking while eating because I am a foodie. I love food. And I made some incredible dishes. So that was really, really hard not talking, like commenting on the food and just all of that stuff. I love mealtime in general. Communicating with my boyfriend was like an epic game of charades. And at one point I started to spell something and he goes, no. I know how you spell. I can't spell very well at all. So that was very interesting, learning how to communicate with him on the first day. Because I started on a Saturday and it went from Saturday to Saturday for 2 weeks. And so it was very, very interesting. So another thing that I recognized that first day was the spectrum of silence was very apparent. And it was interesting because I really noticed some things coming up for me on that first day. So the first thing that came up was weaponized silence, aka the silent treatment. Now, there have been times in my life when people would put me in the silent treatment thing and use it as a punishment, aka my mom, growing up. And one thing I realized during this, that if someone is going to give you the silent treatment, you probably don't want to hear what they have to say anyway, because the silent treatment is a form of manipulation and punishment without offering solution. So that person, something happened and that person got pissed, and so now they're not talking to you. So this is passive aggressive. It's a toxic way of trying to manipulate a situation into having somebody feel a certain way without you telling them. You're implying with your silence, I'm mad at you, so now I'm going to stick it to you by not talking with you. Well, that person's probably toxic to you anyway, so take their silent treatment as a blessing. And once they start talking with you, thank them for sparing you the dialogue. That may seem harsh, but I encourage you to really think about that perspective. Another thing that this brought up was a story that I heard one time. And this really, it stuck with me all these years. So a gentleman was hired to give a commencement address, and he got up to the podium and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share something with you today that will change your life forever." He then stood there for 5 minutes in silence. Now, after the 5 minutes was done, he said, "That, my friends, was 5 minutes. Don't ever think to yourself that you can't do something because you only have, quote unquote, just 5 minutes." Huge, huge. So by day 2, I felt so much more relaxed in my physical body, but I also felt frustrated because I couldn't talk. And day 2 by far was the most challenging during the vow. I think one of the reasons is because we went to the dog park, and I'm a talker. I admit it. I love talking. I love talking with people. I love finding out all about them, their lives. I get paid to talk. I talk for a living. So being in a social situation, especially like a dog park where people are like, oh my God, your dog is so cute. What kind of a dog? How old? Yada, 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 all the things. And I have a mixed breed rescue named Tank, and we don't know what he is. We think he is a wiener dog mixed with a Staffordshire Terrier, aka a breed of pit bull. And the Staffordshire Terrier is like it's a small breed of terrier. Oh, they're so cute. But in any case, so that's what Tank looks like. He looks like a mini long Staffordshire Terrier. So cute. He's 30 pounds. He is a solid chunk of cuteness. So anyway, so we go to the dog park, and Tank normally is not super protective of me. I mean, he is to a point, but not really. If he sees you, he's going to be like, yay, and he's going to like want to lick you and jump on you and be all excited. Granted, he's a 30-pound like small dog. So in any case, we go to the dog park, and he actually was sitting in front of me. Now, he normally runs around and he plays and he just has the best time of his life, but he was sitting in front of me and was guarding me. And the whole time of my 5-day vow of silence, he would look at me with such concern, like, why aren't you talking? Are you okay? So that was really, 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 really challenging, is for one, not talking to my dog, and of course to my partner, but also not talking at the dog park. And people would stop us, and we walked around the park and the dog park and all this other stuff. And it was painful because my boyfriend, I normally do most of the talking when people ask about the dog and whatever, because I'm the one that adopted him. And so having that role reversal where I just stand there and he does all the talking, it was very weird. It was very weird. But yeah, I literally cried on day 2 because it was so frustrating and so hard not to talk. So by day 3, I found myself really slowing down and being a lot more present in everything I was doing during the day. But at the same time, my ego was kind of going nuts. And, ego sometimes is just an asshole. So the interesting thing was that even though I was being more present in what I was doing, my body, even though on day 2 I felt that it was starting to relax a little, I still felt that my body was still as tense as ever, like my head, my neck, my shoulders, all still tense. And because my ego was still talking smack, my guru wanted me to extend my vows of silence for 2 more days. And I cried when she said this because it was so hard and frustrating not to talk. And so some of you might be wondering, so if you can't use any devices, how were you able to communicate with your teacher and guide during this time? And so we actually made a plan beforehand, was that my partner was going to communicate with her for me, like on my behalf. So I basically wrote out my questions on a piece of paper, and then my partner sent those in a message form to her, and then she would message him back, and then he would tell me what she said. So my meditation to end day 3 was really, really intense. One of the things that I mentioned earlier was every day I did 3 hours of meditation. And so some of these meditations were guided meditations that I did myself, because obviously no electronics. And then part of the meditations were just meditations where you just sat and listened. Some were mantra based. But in any case, they were getting very, very intense. And as my mind started to quiet down, and my 3rd meditation on the 3rd day, I shifted into the particle level and shifted into the particle realm, and I saw all of these geometric shapes that were made up of these geometric shapes, which were also made up of geometric shapes. It was just so intense, and it was pitch black, but it was as bright as ever. It was so incredible and almost really difficult to describe. But shifting into that particle realm I mean, I do energy work for my clients like every single week. And so I do my auric cord removal. I do quantum bliss activation. So I'm going into the quantum field almost every single day of the week with my clients. But shifting into the particle realm versus the quantum realm was very different, which that surprised me because I've been working in the quantum realm for a long time. So the particle realm was just insanely incredible. Let me know if you guys want more on that, but it was awesome. It was so good. I'm for sure going to share that with my private clients. Okay, so on day 4, so day 1 through 3, very challenging, very intense because learning not to talk, learning to communicate without verbal communication, doing the meditations, doing the yoga, sticking to my schedule, all the stuff. It was very rigorous. So day 4, I woke up feeling so relaxed and blissful, like time just stood still and like the world had just melted away. And the entire day was like this. The internal resistance that I was feeling to not talking was no longer there. All the tension in my body was just gone. It was just gone. Like this feeling alone was worth the 3 days prior. And like I said, the 3 days prior, it was good. It was so many aha moments, like so eye-opening and so incredibly intense. But then day 4, like literally I woke up in this bliss bubble of like deliciousness. It was so awesome. And like I said, no tension anywhere in my body, not a care in the world, no mind chatter. I was just purely in the moment, And that feeling literally lasted all day long. My meditations were deep. They were so good. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced. And then day 5, I woke up feeling like the entire world was a cactus. So many things were making me feel irritated. Come to find out, this feeling like that, the no talking period, it could be 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 10 to 30 days. When you get to that bliss day, okay, so 1 through whatever day where your ego is still going, keep going. And then whatever day that you have that bliss experience, the next day typically is allowing you to see, it's basically showing you what's left of the ego. So understanding that, I was able to really notice the irritations and lean into it to find out why it was there and what it was showing me. That was a huge, huge shift for me. On day 6, I started talking again. When I started talking though, I almost didn't recognize the sound of my own voice. My voice got very tired very quickly, and it also felt really strange talking for probably like the next couple of weeks, where I would start talking and all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, should I be talking? Am I not talking? Like, what's going on here? Because, not talking purposely, consciously for 5 days and settling into it and feeling almost natural, then by the end of the 5 days, it just felt good not to talk. And then again, it was just very, very strange making that shift to talking again. My dog was like incredibly happy. He was wagging his tail so much he had trouble eating breakfast. He's like, oh my God, you're talking. Thank you. It was so cute. Oh my goodness. So day 7, just every other day, just doing my thing, following my next steps. Day 8 and 9, oh my goodness, that was hard. I was thinking, what the hell am I even doing? This is so hard, just, not talking with my boys. Because even though I could now talk physically, I still had no electronics. And I'm used to speaking with my boys almost every single day, if not every single day, whether through Snapchat or through text messages or the phone calls or FaceTime. So that was really, really hard. And another thing that happened on day 8 and 9 was I was walking my dog, as I do every day, several times a day, and I bumped into some people, and we just, kind of had the idle chit chat that you do when you're just walking around the neighborhood. And I left the conversations feeling really, really strange. And I think the reason being is because the conversations felt kind of shallow, kind of petty, very surface level, and very much just kind of pleasantries. And I'm just like, did we just waste each other's time? It was very interesting how things, when we're removed from them for a time and then we put ourselves back into them, we start to really reflect and see, is this really for me or not? Another thing that I felt, which was really surprising, was I felt like a ghost in the world. It was very eerie. Day 11 through 13, I felt so in flow. Oh my gosh. And I was also feeling a little bit sad because, day 14, it was coming to an end. My meditations were deeper than ever before. My yoga felt incredible. And again, everything was just so peaceful, so blissful. And just, I felt like I had finally found me again after so many years of just being a workaholic. And day 14 came, so the final day. That day, I made some really clear decisions about my business that were very bittersweet. And I really leaned into each step of my day and each practice with gratitude and appreciation at how far I had come in such a short period of time. And when my 14-day Sadhana practice was finally over, it was really strange navigating throughout my day without those next steps. Now, Samaha Yogini gave me some reintegration tips, which really helped tremendously begin to navigate in the world outside of my sadhana. It was easier then to go from having this rigorous 14-day schedule to then now just kind of having it be a free-for-all. And so those next step tips that she gave me were so priceless. And so if you do choose to do this practice, if you do choose to work with her to do this, know that it is worth every emotion that you go through during this 14 days. So that's a brief summary. Like I said, a very brief summary, because I have a half of a notebook full of notes from my practice and from my experience. So now I'm going to answer some questions. Now, these questions were sent to the support email that are in the show notes. If you have questions for me that I don't answer here in this podcast, please email support@florasage.com. Let me know. I'll gladly do another podcast about this topic and this 14-day sadhana. So, on to the questions. Number 1, why did you do this at home instead of an ashram or retreat center? Well, this was a big thing. This was a big decision for me to do either there with her or to do it here at my home. Now, doing this at my home allowed me to make these shifts in the real world in real time. Now, when we're at a retreat center or an ashram, it's easier because you're in a bubble, which makes it easier to not talk if the entire group isn't talking, right? But at home, you're still with your people and in your own space. So you can navigate those spaces while you're making your shifts and having your aha moments, which I think helps you to reintegrate. So I truly believe that this will help us to create those daily routines and to reintegrate after the 14 days, because I've done retreats before, like where you're gone for 5 days at a center and you come home and it feels like you're like an alien, like you're in a totally different realm and you're like, whoa. And sometimes you fall back to all of your old habits, all of your old patterns, and it's hard to keep those things in your life that you've created, like the meditation practice or the mindfulness practice or whatever. It's hard to make those stick when you go from retreat center, then all of a sudden now you're back at your home. So when you do it at home, you have the luxury of testing out what place feels the best for me to meditate, what chair is the best, what room temperature is the best, or what's the best place for me to do some mindfulness work, some journaling, what's the best place for me to do some yoga, and having your family see you go through the shift is another really big perk of doing it at your home. And that was one of the things that I spoke about with my boyfriend and partner, is that he shared with me some of the shifts that he saw in me during my sadhana, but then also how some of those shifts have lasted since that has stopped. So that's been really cool. All right, so question number 2. Now, so most of these questions are combined from several questions. Like I had many people send in questions, and several of them were exactly the same or slightly the same. So I just combined them into one specific question if they were similar. So question number 2 is, what did you love most about the vow of silence? So what I loved the most about the vow of silence was the silence, the stillness, just the nothingness, and how much more mindful I am now about who I speak with and who I let occupy my space, which I think we should all be mindful of that. Now, there's a really good quote that I want to read to you. It's from a gentleman named Neville Goddard, and it's from his book, The Awakened Imagination. And I quote, "On the morning of April 12th, 1953, my wife was awakened by the sound of a great voice of authority speaking within her and saying, 'You must stop spending your thoughts, time, and money. Everything in life must be an investment. To spend is to waste, to squander, to lay out without return. To invest is to lay out for a purpose from which a profit is expected.'" That was, for some reason, that came in hot and heavy with me during my vow of silence. And I was like, yes, that is so important. So if you think about wasting your time or spending your time, again, that's one of the things that this vow of silence showed me, is how much less we need to communicate than what we think we do. And how precious our time is. And again, going back to that just 5 minutes where that gentleman just stood there and was standing there in quiet, in silence for 5 minutes. I bet it felt like an eternity for the audience. And they're probably like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, why is he not talking? Like, really? And it probably brought up all this uncomfortable feeling and sensations and emotions for people. Some people probably got pissed. Maybe some people walked out. And some people maybe were just racking their brain going, what is he doing? And trying to analyze all the things. And then all of a sudden, everyone, hey, this was 5 minutes. And you realize, like during the vow of silence, when there isn't stuff occupying your time, and whether it's you talking with yourself or talking with your animals, because I know I talk to my animals all day long. But when you're in pure silence, you truly start to recognize what is really important and what is just taking up space, what is quote unquote wasting your time. And you really start to think about, do I want to invest my time in this person, in this conversation? Am I really, truly interested? And I actually have another podcast coming up about this particular topic, because I first learned this from one of my business mentors, Tom Black. And it's incredible. It's just incredible. So that was one of the things that I loved the most about the vow of silence, was just the silence, the stillness, the nothing blissfulness that happens. And another incredible thing that happened also was, while I was sitting there in that silence, in that nothingness, everything else was heightened. The taste of food was better. The touch from my partner was more intense. The sunshine was brighter. Laying down and just being in my cozy space, that felt even more so. Like literally everything else was amplified. And that was so powerful. When I was on my walks with my dog, I would hear the sound of my foot going against the grass or the concrete or the sidewalk. I would go under some of the, trees that we have. And here in Arizona, when stuff falls, it dries out pretty quickly. And so hearing the crunch from the dried organic matter, whether it was an eggcorn top, or seed pods of some sort, that was like the best. Half of my walks were like seeking out things to crunch under my shoe. It was amazing. But then also, sitting there under a tree with my dog, just watching life happen, just totally being in the moment. And then hearing a flock of pigeons fly overhead, and you could hear the sound of wings pushing through the air. Like you could hear that resistance. You could hear the sound of them moving through the air. You just notice so many things that when you're talking, you miss. But then even when your ego, we all talk to ourselves in some form or fashion. Or I think most people do at some time during the day. And the beautiful thing about taking the vow of silence is you're not thinking about what you're going to say to so-and-so or whoever the heck, or you're not thinking about, it's literally like things just start to shut down. Like all the excess talks, the excess conversations, the excess thoughts, all of that starts to close down. And what happens is the past melts away. The future hasn't happened yet, so that also starts to melt away. And you truly do become so in touch with the present moment that, like I said, everything else becomes heightened. And that was one of the things that was so profound for me, because I love nature. Like, nature is my church. Ever since I was a kid, anytime I've been out in nature, I literally everything just kind of decompresses and relaxes. And during the vow of silence, being in that space of stillness truly allowed me to connect with nature on a deeper level than I've ever connected before. But then, like I said, everything else, just sitting on the couch, felt more than what it did before. Having a meal felt more than what it was before. Having a hug or intimate time with my partner felt more than what it was before. And so many people seek out more. They seek out bigger and better. They seek out, more. And that was like such a surprising thing, was that by not talking and intentionally being quiet, all of a sudden that more showed up, and I realized, wow, it's already here. Like, I don't have to go anywhere to find more. It's here already. So that was huge. That was incredible. So question number 3, what did you like the least about your vow of silence? I would say how hard it is, or it was, not to be able to communicate even basic things to others. That was really hard. I missed speaking with my boys. That was so hard because I talk to them every single day and talk with them. Another thing that I mentioned, not talking while I eat. I'm a foodie, and I pulled out all my culinary know-how during this 14 days to make really, really delicious meals. And some of them were just insanely delicious. And not being able to verbalize that was so hard. So, I would say that the biggest one is not speaking with my boys. The second one was not being able to communicate just basic needs. That was challenging. And again, you really have to think about when you're doing this, it's not just you doing it. It's also your family is kind of signing up to do this with you, because they also have to realize that your communication is now going to be very different than what it was, because now you can't use vocal cords. You can't, and you could write everything down on a piece of paper, but that's kind of defeating the purpose. The key is to really just be in that space of allowing, which is huge. And it's a form of surrender, which can be really scary for a lot of people. So the next question, number 4, was how has this 14-day experience changed your life so far? I think the biggest thing was I realized during this 14-day sadhana that I was working 24/7 and that my brain just never shut off. And I had blurred the lines of work and play. And it made it very apparent that I needed to make some really huge shifts in my business. This 14-day experience, that was the biggest thing, was like, holy shit, I am a workaholic. So I know right now I'm even more mindful of how I spend my time. Again, I've got a whole other podcast episode that I'm going to be doing on how we spend our time. It's just crazy, the realizations that I had. And like I said, I first learned this actually it was first the quote of that gentleman with the 5 minutes, and then Tom Black, one of my mentors, and then this 14-day sadhana just even solidified it even more. So another thing was, and if you've been following me for any amount of time, you know that I love my timer. So that this 14-day experience solidified my continued use for my timer for the things that I want to do to stay focused on. That's huge, because again, when you stay focused on something, you can get in, get out. You're really focused on it. You're not worrying about anything else or focused on anything else. You are literally just focusing on that. I mean, we all know multitasking, I can't talk. We all know that multitasking is a facade. It's not true. It cannot be done. There are massive studies around how multitasking actually makes it take whatever it is you're doing, takes longer by at least 25%, and tasks are done less efficiently. This really just reiterates the fact of me using my timer to stay focused, shutting my phone off while I'm doing very focused and tasks that I really want to just not have any type of anything. Another thing that I did was I shut off literally all notifications on my phone except for the people that are in my favorites. So if you're in my favorites, those notifications will come through if you call or if you text. Everything else, I have to actually go to the app and look at it to see if you have sent something. So that's been big. Another thing is I see life differently now, and it's almost hard to explain unless you've been through this process. But when I came back online, I realized, and this might sound a little bit morbid, but I realized that life continued on without me. And it was almost like I died and then came back and was like, I was just kind of like reinserting myself more intentionally into those spaces that I missed. And I intentionally took myself out of spaces that I didn't miss. But again, it was like I was just kind of reinserting myself into life that never stopped. Even though I chose to stop for 14 days and have a reset, no talking for the first 5, continuing on with my practice for the full 14, literally I put my life on pause for that moment of time. And 14 days is just like that. It's a blip. And that was very eye-opening, seeing how life continued. And that was it's like I said, it's almost hard to describe because it literally almost felt like, oh, okay, so if I died, like this is what it would be like life goes on, I mean, obviously for the people that are in your life, that it doesn't just go on right away. Like obviously, there's the mourning and all that other stuff, and I've had people in my life cross over. My mom when I was 12, my dad like 8 years ago, I think. And life gets weird when somebody that you love isn't there. But the general overall scheme of things, when you look at the interweb spaces, life goes on and you're just a blip on the radar. And so, like I said, it was very interesting to say, okay, so where online, what out there did I really miss? and what didn't I miss? And I reinserted myself into those spaces that I missed, and I intentionally took myself out of the spaces that I didn't miss. So it's also really interesting the random things that surface from the internet when you're not on the internet. Like, you remember people that you follow, whose messages or vibe that you really, resonate with, or the blogs that you miss reading, or the podcasts that you wonder about, the people that you miss texting with. It's really eye-opening about what really matters in your life and what really doesn't. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's really all about quality relationships and spending time with the people that really matter in your life. So that's huge. All right, question number 5. What did you do in your free time, if you had any? So yes, I had free time every day. And I finished a prayer shawl that I was working on. I put a few puzzles together. I did chores around the house, went to the chiropractor, got groceries. I wrote letters to my kids and my sisters every day. I read some books. So I journaled. But yeah, so every single day we had free time. I had free time. And yeah, sometimes I just kind of sat there and just like chilled in the backyard and watched the hummingbirds eat. Man, hummingbirds can be kind of brutal. There's 3 hummingbirds in my backyard that frequent my feeder. One has like the spoiler on the back of his tail feathers and on like the back of his head. So he or she is so cute. But there would be 2 of them that would like, I don't even know, they would like do sparring in mid-flight. Like they would, and one of them super, super talkative. It was just crazy. And it was so cool. And I never noticed that until I just stopped and just watched the hummingbirds one day for like an hour. And it was fascinating. And I got to see their personalities, and it's just incredible. So making use of that free time without electronics was awesome. And I highly recommend it. So all right, number 6, what changes have you made because of this? Oh my gosh, so many. So I have unfollowed a lot of people on social media. My usage of my devices is down considerably, like a quarter of what it used to be. I no longer have my phone by my side 24/7. Another thing was I completely took work off of my phone. Like every single work app, well, except for my Voxer, because that's how I communicate with my private clients, but everything, everything, all of it, it's off my phone. So I have to be at my computer in order to work. So that's good. I also started using a small alarm clock to wake up with. Not digital. I use like the old school one with hands. I found a really cute one on Amazon for like $13. Super cute. Another shift that I made from doing this experience was I shifted my business from having a membership, which I started my current membership in 2010. I shifted that from having that to closing the membership down and only working one-on-one with clients for the foreseeable future. And that was kind of a challenging choice and decision for my ego to make, because again, I've had my membership open since 2010, so that's been 12 years. So to shift that to having it, because that's just what I do, I've got memberships, to closing it down just because that's what spirit was guiding me. Again, my ego was fighting it tooth and nail, but it felt like and it still feels like the perfect choice and the perfect decision. Another thing that I did too was I made my lower tier coaching programs available for enrollment directly on my website. And I'm showing my prices, which allows people to see it and say, you know what, I'm doing this, let's go for it. And they can sign up directly instead of doing what's called a discovery call. And the interesting thing is that I shifted that, and then I sent an email out to my list saying, hey, I've got coaching available, click here if you're interested. And I got 2 emails back to back. One saying how outrageous my prices are, And the second email was about how affordable my prices are. And the second person signed up right away. So I just thought that was really interesting. So if you're in business and you're like going, oh my God, like what's the perfect price? You're always going to be cheap or very affordable for one person, and you're always going to be outrageously expensive for another person. So set your prices as you're guided. I mean, I have a whole course about this called the Mastermind Mafia. If you're interested, email me, we'll talk. Or I'll basically send you the link, and if you want to sign up, go for it. But in any case, so I thought that was so funny and interesting, and I laughed so hard when I literally got them. I think they were like 1 minute apart. So another fun fact was that I never really liked doing those discovery calls anyway, because I'm not here to convince anybody or of anything. Like, if you want to work with me or not. And, all of my one-on-one clients that I have right now, they just knew that they were ready to work with me. They knew it. And they contacted me and said, hey, I want to work with you one-on-one. Where's the link? And so I just sent them the link. So, it really just goes to show you what ego thinks you need to do and what your spirit knows is the right thing for you to do. When you know. All right, next question. Number 7, during your vow of silence, did you go anywhere? And if so, did people try to talk with you, and what did you do? Yes, I did go places. Every day I walked for between 1.5 to 2 hours every day, and I bumped into people around the neighborhood all the time. When they spoke to me, I just showed them my little note card that says I've taken a vow of silence. And they made a couple comments like, oh my God, I would love to do that. That's so cool. Or, oh my God, how interesting. I'm so excited to talk with you about this when you're done. So it was really neat. And actually not as awkward as I thought it would be. So that's good. And I also went to the grocery store and to the dog park, and I used that card there too. So it wasn't too bad. The first time I used it in each of the settings was a little bit awkward, but then after that, it was fine. All right, number 8. What are some surprises you found out about this process? And also, what have been some of your results? Oh my goodness, I had so many results. So during this 14 days, when I would do some of my meditations, I found myself doing body movements that were helping me shift energy out of my body. Now, some of you may be familiar with a therapy called Somatic Therapy. This is when the therapist will talk to you about traumatic events in your life, or just events in your life, whether you deem them as traumatic or not. And all of a sudden you'll notice one or more series of muscles in your body will be tense. Well, this is where that memory or that trauma is stored in your physical body. And so what the therapist will do is then do certain kind of like massage movements and certain things to help shift that energy out of that particular muscle group. And so I found it very interesting with the set of intentions that I had going into this 14 days. I found it interesting that one, every single meditation that I did every single day was vastly different. And 2, when I would do a meditation where I would be chanting certain mantras and doing certain body movements and literally be moving the entire hour that I was doing this meditation, that it was so cathartic, so therapeutic, so healing. And at the end of that meditation, I just felt so rejuvenated and like I was a new person. That was very surprising. I did not expect that. It was so good. And another surprising thing again, and I already mentioned this, is that each day I did 3 hours of meditation. And so with each hour that I meditated, each meditation was so different. Even though I did something similar, or even the same as what I did in the previous meditation, the energy kind of encapsulated into it was just so different. So again, like I said, that was surprising for me. Another thing was I slept so good, better than I have slept in decades, in decades. So I don't know if it was if it was the 3 hours of meditation, if it was the plant-based eating, like I said, that really wasn't a big change for me. Or if it was the 1.5 hours of yoga, if it was the pranayama practice, which is a breathing practice, I don't know. But the combination I have never felt and I have never slept better. Another thing is that I found myself being a better listener, and I find that I am much more contemplative during the day, which I really, really like. Another thing that I noticed is when we went to the store a few times, I noticed how like literally everyone is on their phones and they're all like in their own bubble. And one of the things that I really recognized, and I'm still recognizing this, is how people rush. They like rush through everything. And I kind of feel, I was once that person where I rushed through. I want to get to this and I want to get to that and I want to get this done and I want to get this over and I want to check this off my list. And it's like we're missing being in the present moment. Like I actually told my partner, I said, I found my nothing box. So if you've been on the internet with any length of time, you've heard the story about how men have a nothing box. I was like, I found my nothing box. I found it. Like I literally can sit here and think about nothing and just be here. And it's perfect. But like I said, I noticed how like everybody was on their phones, like almost, even when they're driving, like almost every time I would see people, they're on their phone. And if they weren't on their phone, they're rushing to try to get through something so they can hurry up and get to that other thing, so they can hurry up and get to that other thing. And people, we're just missing being in the present moment. Another thing that for my results / surprises was I was reminded how much I love meditation and yoga and how good both make my body and mind feel. Oh my goodness. So good. So good. So I want to riff a little bit about meditations because I know I'm probably going to get this question in my next or for my next podcast if I don't bring this in. So my meditations, as I mentioned several times, were 60 minutes each, 3 times a day. So at first, I would do like a free-form meditation where, I was just noticing the present moment. And where I'm like, I am sitting in the chair. I'm noticing like how my butt feels on the chair, how my legs feel as they're sitting crisscross or as I'm in lotus position or whatever position I was in. I would notice the temperature. I would notice the feel of my mala beads in my hand. I would notice the sound of my dog breathing next to me or my cat laying on my lap. Sometimes he would lay on my lap. And then as the meditations progressed, I found myself naturally wanting to do my TM, which is my transcendental meditation. I found myself naturally wanting to do some mantra meditations. And it was really cool seeing the different dynamic in each of the hours that I meditated, and whether it was my first meditation of the day, the last meditation of the day, or the meditation that was in the middle of the day. So that was interesting. As the days went on, I found that I really like to do the first 30 minutes of my meditation to be like mantra based. So this could be like the So Hum meditation or the Om Mani Padme Hum meditation. There's also several others that I really, really love. And then I would end the meditation with 20 to 30 minutes of my TM practice. So I loved it. And I know, I've got several classes about meditation. I have several programs about meditation. So let me know if you guys have any questions about that as well, so that I can add that to the next podcast about this. Another thing is I was reminded of how much I love to eat vegetarian. I made so many incredible dishes. I made sweet potato steaks. I made stuffed mushrooms. I made a whole bunch of squash dishes. Oh my gosh, so good. Another thing is that I would say that I recognize my edge more easily now. That edge where I know when I need to pivot. And I know like, okay, what I'm doing feels good, but maybe I need to pivot so that I can feel even more in alignment and even more joy. Another thing was that, and this was really interesting, that my teacher said to me, she said, Your results don't matter. They have no meaning. Just find joy in just being. Now, for someone who has been very driven by my to-do list and by results, this was huge for me. So, as you know, I have a book called The 1 Degree Shift. This is my coaching platform. So, if something feels off, stop and say, okay, what's one thing I can do to shift so that I can feel, do, be, have, whatever, the thing that I want. Okay, so I can feel the way that I want, I can have the things that I want, that I can be the person that I want. What's one thing that I can do, that little subtle shift? This practice allowed me to recognize that edge more easily, or that feeling of, nope, I need to shift. I need to stop and I need to do my little 1 degree shift. I need to make my little pivot. So that was even more exciting. But the thing that kind of blew my mind, like I said, is when my teacher was like, results don't matter. They have no meaning. It's just, are you in joy when you are doing whatever it is you're doing? That's it. Just be in joy, whatever it is you're doing. If you make a video, make the video. If one person sees it or if a million people see it, are you in joy? If you're in joy, perfect. That was huge. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, one of my intentions for this sadhana was for me to feel more joy. So to let go of the attachment of what my results mean was huge. That was huge. And I'm still working on that one every day. So another random couple of results was I lost 4 pounds and I read 2 full books. So that's exciting. All right. So the last question that I got that so many of you are asking, question number 9. I want to do this so badly. What do you recommend to someone who wants to take this 14-day sadhana? I'm so excited for you, first of all. Okay, so number 1, get clear about your intentions and why you want to do this, okay? So, and just taking a break from the world is enough of a why. Number 2, look at your calendar and just plan a time. When I looked at my calendar, I realized that the schedule that I had already set for myself for my membership and my time commitments and all that other stuff, I was not available for 2 whole weeks until the end of March. And I'm like, that's not okay with me. Nope. And so I shifted everything down a week for my business. And because I always take the last week of every month off anyway for balance and harmony. And so I'm like, nope, I'm just shifting everything down a week and I'm putting it in now. And she's like, okay, cool. So that was perfect. The third recommendation that I would make is to contact my guru and my teacher, Samaha Yogini. I have put her contact information in the show notes. And let her know that you want to do your own 14-day sadhana or journey of your own. This is not a paid advertisement. This is not a paid endorsement. This is just sharing with you guys, my teacher, my guru, my spiritual advisor and mentor, who has literally changed my life for the better. They always say a teacher needs a teacher, a guide needs a guide, a healer needs a healer. And I have to say that Samaha Yogini is one of those people that will change your life. I mean, that's the only way that I can put it. So overall, would I do this again? Yes. This experience was so life-changing in so many ways that I really, truly cannot fully articulate it. I feel like I have my joy and my passion back for life. I play so much more now than ever. Oh my goodness. And, I just said this, but as a teacher, it's so important to have teachers of your own. It's also so important to be the student. And being a student in this way has truly, truly allowed me to strip away the veil of ego and allow my full spirit to truly come in and just be an even stronger guide in my day-to-day life. So not only in my business, but in my everyday life too. So I hope that you have enjoyed hearing about my 5-day vow of silence and my 14-day sadhana. Please let me know if you have any more questions. Like I said earlier, I used up half of a notebook with notes and reflections during this journey. And what I shared to you today is literally just the tip of the iceberg. I'm sure I'm going to do another episode to answer more questions I receive because of this episode. But I would strongly encourage you to look within and really ask yourself, how much joy do you feel each day? Are you fully present in what you're doing, or are you too preoccupied with the past or the future to really enjoy this moment right now? If you do feel disconnected in some way and you feel that this 14-day practice is right for you, please reach out to Samaha Yogini and work with her to create your 14-day retreat. She customizes your plan specifically for you. You guys, she is out of this world. Like, I am not kidding. She will change your life forever. So if you're interested in working with me privately to help you create your 1-degree shift in your life, to help you simplify your life so that you can experience more of what you love, check the show notes for the coaching link. Grab a spot in my calendar. Thank you for tuning in as always. I love you guys. I will see you in the next episode. Mwah. Have a fabulous rest of your day. If you're enjoying this content, which I hope you are, and you're applying this knowledge in your life and are seeing results, I would love to hear about your successes. Click the link in today's show notes, share your success story with me so you can help to inspire others. Also, if you've been loving these episodes, it would mean the world to me if you would rate this podcast on iTunes. A 5-star rating is what I always aim for. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. All links mentioned are in today's show notes.